So what's up with the Splinter Cell series? I'll be covering each mainline entry to the series and not any of the smaller titles. You can jump around the video to any specific game or just experience them in chronological order with me. No story spoilers. Let's get started. What's up with Splinter Cell? The first game was released in 2002 by Ubisoft Montreal as an Xbox exclusive. Other versions of the game would eventually come to other platforms, but this is the game that started it all. Heavily inspired by the Metal Gear games, Splinter Cell took the realistic world from Tom Clancy's books as a starting point. The game has a heavy emphasis on lighting and sound as players maneuver around to complete stealth missions. The game starts with Sam Fisher in 2004, an agent of the NSA tasked to begin the formation of a new branch called Third Echelon, in which he'll be a Splinter Cell, which is basically a sole operative spy dude. Throughout the game, you'll be hearing from the director of Third Echelon, Irving Lambert, who just goes by his last name, and technical support Anna Grimm's daughter, aka Grimm. A quick aside, I found it kind of funny how Grimm f***s up trying to make a good first impression, and she almost gets you killed.
There's a room directly across the hall. Go there now. Sorry about that.
Sam has access to military weaponry and gadgets to help him complete each mission. Playing this on a modern Xbox, you use the right bumper to cycle through your gear. Aiming down sights is very much a sign of the times, with it being on the X button, and jump is on Y. Speaking of jumping, Sam has quite a few tricks up his sleeve. He can shimmy up and across pipes as well as wall jump into a splits between both surfaces. This wall jump doesn't work very well, I'll explain later. The game is one of the first to allow you to shoot out lights in the environment, at least most of them, since being sneaky is the name of the game. There's a meter on the bottom right to show you how lit Sam is, with the right side of it indicating when you're the most visible. Future installments will have a meter to show how much sound you're making, but for now you gotta be aware of that yourself. When you begin a mission, Grimm will give you case files to aid you, like a breakdown of off-screen events, maps, photos, and other stuff like that. You can add to these files by hacking into computers and stealing documents. I first played these games back in 2021, and I gotta say, for the first entry of the series, this game got a shocking amount of it right. This is a solid stealth game, and it's just a great game all around. It's not the best one of these by far, but I really enjoyed my time with it. Playing Chaos Theory and Double Agent, and then coming back to this game, it made me miss on some of the features, like zapping cameras or bashing doors open to knock out a guard that's on the other side. The main way to interact with the environment is with the A button. The top corner will show you what Sam is capable of doing. It may seem dumb to have these actions on one button, but they handle it incredibly well. When these actions are stacked on top of each other, you can hold A and then cycle through them with the D-pad, so you can do exactly what you're aiming for without fumbling around and doing shit you don't want to do. Speaking of grabbing enemies, sometimes specific characters will have key information that you need. Sneaking up and grabbing them will allow you to move around and interrogate them for their hot gossip. They can tell you door codes, secret areas, other information about your mission, or maybe nothing useful at all. Once you knock them out, it allows the guards to find their body, activate alarms, and go on high alert. A thing I noticed specifically with this game and the next one is that putting down a body will always place them on the right side of Sam, lengthwise. It makes it a little tricky if there's a specific spot that you want to put them, but you can just clip their body parts in the wall to cheese it. My main negative with this game is the AI. Sometimes they have laser vision. This becomes more noticeable in the late game. They will spot you with no problem, like you're playing on the hardest difficulty. It's usually a good problem for a game to have when the AI is too smart, but not so much in a stealth game. Honestly, when I start a mission, I got my pocket full of gadgets, a vague objective, and this intricate playground. I rub my hands together because I know I'm about to do a little chicanery, debauchery, and some obstreperous activities. These games are a ton of fun, and the great tutorial allows you to get accustomed to Sam and his arsenal of possibilities. It really lets you appreciate it even more. He feels great to control, he's super responsive in his movements, and he goes exactly where you want him to. Other third-person games feel like you're grabbing someone by the shoulders and pushing them around, like Callisto or Gears. But these and even the Hitman games have always felt fantastic to control. I do have one issue with Sam though, and it's his wall jump. For one thing, it makes too much noise, so you can really only do it when no one's around. And the split jump works great, no issues, but the wall jumping controls change when there's an adjacent wall. If you try to do a wall jump, the game will think that the wall you're looking at is the wall you want to scale. So Sam will push off of the other wall. Like I said, the split jump works fine, it's just not consistent with the other use case. This long-ass description makes it seem like a bigger deal than it actually is. I suck with words sometimes. Okay, should you play Splinter Cell? Well, it's the perfect game if you want to hear Virginia catch strays.
These cops are as crooked as a Virginia fence.
If you need... Sam? Sam. If your bad guys pose for photos, and if you want to see this dude spit in someone's food.
Thanks. Thank you.
Okay, I gotta say, this game is up there. This becomes the blueprint for most of the other Splinter Cell games moving forward. I would say that all of them improve on this game, but that's not the case. The first Splinter Cell is currently being remade, and my teacher is working on it, so I'm super stoked for this game to get even better than it already was. Anyways, the best is yet to come, so let's keep it rolling. What's up with Splinter Cell?
Pandora Tomorrow.
The game released in 2004 and was the next mainline game in the series. Ubisoft Montreal was the spearhead of the last game, and Ubisoft Shanghai was the head of this one. In some ways, Shanghai played it too safe, and other ways they changed too much. The game, first off, looks exactly like the first one, like dog shit. I found it jarring how similar they looked, but it was released only 2 years after the last game, so I should have expected it. The areas are much more diverse than the first game, including jungles, swamps, and more creative interiors. They also change a bunch of the buttons in the UI. First with the buttons. Right bumper is no longer to go through your inventory, it makes you whistle, so you can attract nearby guards to your location. I think this is pretty dope. More stealth games should have a feature like this. Going through your inventory is now on the left bumper, which before had you shimmy against walls, and now that's on the left stick. They also opted to get rid of the wall jump. Kind of. Before you could have used it wherever you wanted, but now there are designated spots where you need to use it, and you can even boost up from that location. The UI is an improvement in most cases. For some reason, to me, everything looks a bit more cramped than it did before. I can't really put my finger on it. But I like that they added a feature counter for how many alarms you're permitted to trigger before a mission is a failure. Pandora Tomorrow also has new features available to Sam. He can hang upside down from a pipe and wield his gun. I don't remember ever using this, but it's pretty dope nonetheless. There's a new vision mode on your goggles, being thermal. It's mostly used for spotting mines and bombs, but the game has you use it in a far more creative way at the end of the game. If you don't like the pistol crosshair, you can hit the left trigger to use a laser sight instead, but enemies will see it if you aim it at their face. Side note, listen to this hitting effect.
I only have to keep you alive. I don't have to keep you comfortable. Don't tempt me.
I have some observations before I get into my big negative. The lighting is not consistent between the meter and in-game. The game looks at your distance to enemies and where you are on the light meter to determine if an enemy should spot you or not. In the first game, I had no issue with this. I could look at Sam and make a good guess on how visible I am. I just found myself more reliant on the meter in this game. Another one is that enemies will change their pathing based on where you are, even if they haven't seen you. This was f***ing annoying when I realized it. A big part of stealth games is recognizing patterns and capitalizing on opportunities. I have an example. I come up to these guys and they have a chat out in the open because that's where I am. The guy in the blue walks off to the right. Another run, I'm in the same area just off to the left inside of a tent. They chat again but in a different spot since I'm in a different spot. The guy in the blue goes off to the left. It just sucks to know that the game can just switch up on you and give you different outcomes if you're not aware of it. I have one very big negative. This may have been in the last game, but it became extremely obvious playing Pandora Tomorrow. When you don't hide bodies, you get called for a warning or a mission failure. I tested this a couple times and placed unconscious bodies out in the open and where I know that no one patrols. And when I reach a certain threshold, I get flagged mission failure. I think this has to do with the darkness meter flashing feature that they added. When you're carrying someone and you bring them somewhere dark enough that their body won't be seen, the darkness indicator will start flashing. This absolutely was not in the first game. So if you disregard this and just put bodies wherever you want, the game gets mad at you and just punishes you for not playing the way that it wants you to. It may sound like I really dislike this game, and on my first time through, that automated detection thing that I was just talking about bugged the shit out of me. My second time through, I was more careful and I enjoyed it much more. I'd still put the first game over it, even though Pandora Tomorrow improved on the smaller aspects. Anyway, should you play Pandora Tomorrow? Well, it's the perfect game. If chest compressions would help someone that blew up, if you can hear anything over this loud-ass rain,
The only thing Sedano doesn't underestimate is his own charm.
if you don't speak English,
I need information.
don't speak English.
And if you... Oh shit, he saw me.
My God!
Okay, Pandora Tomorrow to me was more of a step to the side rather than a step up from the last game. That's not a bad thing since I'm a broken record on how much I loved the first game. Anyways, we're about to get into the supposed good stuff now, so let's keep it going. What's up with Chaos Theory? Okay, here we go. This is the game that has everyone all hot and bothered. When people say that Splinter Cell games are amazing, this is the one that they point to. But we'll get there. Splinter Cell Chaos Theory was released in 2005, a year after Pandora Tomorrow, with Ubisoft Montreal back at the helm. We got the first graphics bump, and not just that, we got a bunch of quality of life changes added as well. And the big one has been changed. So I write these scripts in order, and when doing research for this portion of the video, I found out that I was correct. This is taken from the wiki fandom. All those links will be in the description. Look at this. In former installments, after Sam left a certain area, the game would sweep the previous area for bodies and a well-lit spot. If any were found, an alarm would be triggered. In Chaos Theory, the bodies need to be discovered by a patrolling guard or security camera in order to trigger an alarm. Thank fuck. Could you tell how mad I was in the Pandora Tomorrow section? It's such a shit way to do stealth, and I'm so fucking happy it's fixed. But on top of that, a bunch of things have changed. Some small and some not so small. The biggest one I mentioned earlier in the video is the audio meter. It joins your light meter in the bottom right. The little square inside of it shows the ambient level of the environment. The meter fills up with the sound that Sam makes, like footsteps, and if it passes that square, then Sam can be heard much easier by nearby enemies. This is brilliant, a great asset to these missions. It kind of reminded me how the Sniper Elite games use a similar mechanic. Another big change is being able to zap lights. On Sam's pistol, he has like a pew pew EMP zapper thingamajig. I think that's the official name for it. Hitting the left trigger will allow you to temporarily turn off lights, or in my case, a generator. This is a nice variation from just shooting everything, especially since shooting lights causes lots of noise. Sam also has a knife this time around. He uses it when interrogating enemies, can make quick kills in close proximity, and he can cut some materials with it. At points in the game, there will be tents or plastic sheets that Sam can silently slice through to make a new entryway. It's a small addition, but it shows how someone like Sam would take full advantage of his equipment. Going back to the interrogation, left trigger will knock them out and the right trigger will break their back like a toothpick and instantly kill them. He also has more techniques, like hanging upside down can allow you to grab opponents and choke them out. A small detail that I really appreciate is that Sam changes his posture when he's behind someone. He takes longer strides to walk softer and he reaches for his knife, getting ready to grab them. Standing still and an enemy walking past you, he'll also reach for his knife. Like I said, it's a small detail, but I love shit like this. What do I think about the game? Well, quickly give the video a like if you're liking it and subscribe. It's totally free and it helps me out a lot. Thank you. I mentioned before that this is the Splinter Cell game that everyone points to as to being the best. And I gotta say, they're absolutely right. The game had so much thought and care put into it, and you can probably tell just by watching the gameplay. For the first game, I said how I rub my hands together when I'm dropped in a new area to explore. It's tenfold here. Chaos Theory's areas are much larger and less linear. Redding gives you optional objectives to do, and I found myself going out of my way to do them. This game had me hooked when I first started playing. I'd go all slumped over, shit posture mode and play the game for 2 hours without even realizing it. Finish a mission and then instantly begin the next one. The gameplay loop of stealth encounters, maneuvering environments, problem solving, area exploring, rinse and repeat, it's masterfully done here. It takes the best part of the previous games and makes it even better. Should you play Chaos Theory? Well, it's the perfect game if your diet includes too much cheese.
Sometimes I look up at the stars and wonder if maybe, just maybe, someone else is looking back at me. Then I think, nah, it's probably just from eating too much cheese late at night.
If you want to see Sam on a blind date,
Maria Narcissa.
You're not trying to set me up on another blind date, I hope.
The Maria Narcissa is a boat.
So was the last girl you set me up with.
Fisher.
Sorry.
if monkey is your safe word,
Oh no! You're going to kill me, right?
Only if you say the word monkey.
and if hitboxes are your worst enemy. If any of these games are a must play, it's this one. I don't want to spoil anything about the story or the mission structure or anything like that, so play the game yourself, you'll probably love it. Okay, Next. What's up with Splinter Cell Double Agent? Right off the bat, I want to clarify something pretty important. There are two versions of this game. Version 1 was made by Ubisoft Shanghai and Milan for the 360 and PS3, the same team that made Pandora Tomorrow. Version 2 is made by Ubisoft Montreal, who worked on Chaos Theory and the first game. This version released on the first Xbox, PS2, GameCube, and the Wii. This is the version that I played and the one that I'll be talking about. I chose to play version 2 just because it's the more highly rated version, and I just came from playing 3 original Xbox Splinter Cell games, so in terms of button layout and shit like that, I figured it might be an easier transition. From what I know, there are some big differences between the two versions, level design and the story being the main ones. Speaking of story, version 2 is not canon. So if you play this version, it's strictly for the different levels and new areas. The games were released in 2006 and are set in 2008. Double Agent was built off the bones of Chaos Theory, so they look and play very similar, kinda like the first game and Pandora Tomorrow. And, like tradition, they changed the UI yet again. They kept the sound meter and the light meter, but moved them around a little bit. Also, I was convinced that the new light meter was a visibility meter instead, from when I started testing it right here at the start. But then later it seems to go back to normal. I don't fucking know. The game's good. The gimmick is that because of story reasons, Sam has chosen to take on a risky mission, which would see him gain the trust of one of the NSA's enemies, being the JBA. As you play the game, there will be situations where you'll need to choose how to proceed. One option will favor you with the NSA and the other one with the JBA. Heavily siding with one side over the other will have them questioning your loyalty to them. This can have gameplay complications. Right at the start, I decided to spare a guy that the NSA wanted alive for questioning, so this JBA dude didn't want to give me a gun because he thought he couldn't trust me.
Check it out. He has a gun.
I'll take it.
No way, Sam. I can't trust you to use it, not after the way you went soft on Barnum.
The bigger the choice, the more the meter will shift. They are sprinkled throughout the game, so I found the best course of action was to go back and forth. But like I said, some options are more weighted than others, so you just gotta be careful. Most of the missions have to do with the JBA wanting you to kill someone or blow something up, or the NSA wanting you to let people live and send them any critical information. I gotta say, the biggest selling point of the game is this two-sided mission structure. There really isn't much else to talk about without getting into the story. It not being canon really allows them to force you to make some really tough choices though. The decisions you make as you progress later and later in the game get more and more difficult, but that's really all I can say. This added another layer to the gameplay that isn't really felt in previous or even future titles, but it's a dope feature to try out. The game really is fun. If you like Chaos Theory, you'll probably like this too. Alright, should you play Double Agent? Well, it's the perfect game. If you just don't want to pick this guy up. If you...
Yes, he did.
Wait, what?
Tell him we did it. We managed to...
If you want to see Sam bald,
He was treated the same as anybody else. No better, no worse.
and if you want to see some crazy ragdolls. Double Agent was a solid entry to the series. I feel like it's always forgotten for some reason. It might be because of the trust meter thing. The fact that there are two versions of the game are kinda cool, so you get twice as much content even if they are kinda framed in the same structure. I'll probably go back eventually and play the 360 version, maybe. Okay, this is where everything changes. What's up with Splinter Cell Conviction? The game was released in 2010 as an Xbox exclusive, and wow. Does Microsoft have bad luck with exclusive timing or what? Ubisoft Montreal is back at the helm. When I said it changed everything, I really meant it. Let's just jump right into the deep end. First off, there's no light meter at all. When Sam is in a shadow, the screen turns black and white, signaling to you that you are basically invisible. Let me rant on this feature for a little bit. It's so f***ing dumb. Whenever I mention this to anyone, they don't see a problem with it, and it makes me so mad. Any level of shadow, the game treats you like you're in a pitch black environment. But then again, this is also the same series that has the enemies ignore the 3 flashlights on your f***ing forehead. So let's move on. Conviction is the first move to try and make the series more modern. Sam moves incredibly fast. He zooms around like he's in his early 20s when he's really in his 50s. Not to say anything about age, he's just much quicker than the previous games. He's also more lethal, and in turn, you are more lethal. There are no non-lethal weapons, no non-lethal attacks, no crawling, no night vision, no light meter, no sound meter. No picking up bodies, no split jump, no picking up and throwing items. I could go on, but those are the big ones. You're probably thinking, holy shit, then what is this game? They removed just about every staple Splinter Cell feature, especially the night vision. I guess you can argue it's still there in form of sonar, but the game is so bright most of the time it's useless. Sonar lets you see through walls basically and can highlight interactable stuff in your environment. It's a way to combine all of your goggles from the previous games into one. But since it's so strong, you can't use it while you're moving. When running, it basically renders you fucking blind. But even inching forward in cover will have it jitter time to time. The last negative before we get into the positives. The game has a mark and execute feature, and if you've played a game from this era before, you've probably used a feature like this already. Tagging a bunch of enemies, hitting one button, and then the character instantly kills them all. Hitman Absolution also had this, and Blacklist keeps it as well. I don't see a problem with the feature per se, but it's so strong that the game has to be designed around it, so you don't spam it at every instance. It's like people's problem with Sprint in Halo. Since everyone can move so much quicker, then the maps need to be larger to compensate. But that's a video for another time. The way that they balance this is that you need to get a hand-to-hand takedown before you can use it. And I quickly noticed that in most areas, they give you a sole roaming guard as a free kill, so you can enter most encounters with one free charge of mark and execute. So if you want to use it again, you gotta be sneaky, which is a fine solution, I guess. The game does quite a few things right. It's a great third-person shooter. The cover mechanics are great. It really reminded me of Gears in that way. Since Sam is so fast, you can zip around the battlefield and get into strong angles in no time. Sorry, another negative. Since there's no vent crawling or hiding, I noticed the level design has become extremely boring. Sneaky parts of missions feel like generic stealth in other games. Avoid being seen, stick in a cover, and just waiting for an opening. Okay, back to the positive. There's a series of levels later on in the game that have absolutely great design. Rooms offset, overlap, and looped into each other. I think it's dope. You'll know when you get there. It's tons of fun. Conviction also puts more of an emphasis on the story. These games have always had narrative, but it was always meant to deliver the gameplay to you until Double Agent. But Conviction has its story front and center. Sam shows much more emotion in some scenes, which leads to another positive. Tutorials, objectives, and even Sam's feelings are projected onto the environment. Even clips from flashbacks and other events, like someone playing a movie off a projector. It looks really dope, actually. This is smart because it can direct your attention to certain spots on a building or across a room to get you play in a different way or consider something that you may have overlooked. Should you play Conviction? Well, it's the perfect game if you want to see a pixelated flag. If you want to punch some dudes. If you want to shoot some dudes. And if you want to hang from pipes. I'm sorry, I didn't play the game long enough to get good clips for that segment. I've beaten the game in the past, it's just that going back to get this footage, I had enough. The game overall is pretty meh. It's the weakest game of the bunch, but it's kind of tough for me to call it bad. This was the last game of them all that I played, so I was pretty bummed that this was the last impression that I'd get on the series. But for everyone else, there was one more game. What's up with Splinter Cell Blacklist? This game was created by Ubisoft Toronto, the same team behind the upcoming remake. The game was a direct response to the overall negative reception of Conviction, and I think they did a solid job. Speaking of Conviction, Blacklist was built on its bones, which is funny because I didn't realize that until playing all these back to back. Blacklist was my very first Splinter Cell game and Conviction was my last. Let's address the elephant in the room. This is not Sam Fisher. I mean it is, but not really. Michael Ironside voiced every single iteration of Sam in the past games. I never mentioned it before because he's synonymous with Sam Fisher. It's like telling you this game has guns in it. Well, no shit. They decided to go with a younger actor instead, Eric Johnson. What Ubisoft said was that Michael was becoming too old to do the mocap, so they needed someone younger. Which is bizarre to me, because I just said the game was built off the bones of an already finished game. So the intense mocap work is done already. But he did an interview where he mentioned he battled cancer and it was not looking good. So maybe this lined up with Blacklist? I don't really know, I couldn't find anything on that. Eric Johnson put his own twist on Sam Fisher to be a more by-the-book, get-shit-done, gruff type of attitude. No joke making, no say monkey, none of that. Which is why I say that this is not Sam. This version of him is a good character. I liked him around launch when I first played, and I didn't really understand the negativity. When I went back to the older games, I got it. Michael does Sam best, there's no doubt. This could have been a new character that Sam passes the torch to, but they didn't go that route. Alright, enough of that, let's talk about the game. I didn't talk about story for the last games, but I'll mention it here since it's straightforward. There's a terrorist group called the Engineers, and they're demanding that the United States pull all of their troops from the 150 countries that they're stationed in. They will commit attacks every 7 days until this is done. These planned attacks are called the Blacklist. Story reasons lets us know that 3rd Echelon is no more, and 4th Echelon is now the big shit and Sam is in charge, along with Grim, Briggs, and Charlie. The gameplay goes back to the stealth roots, while keeping a bunch of systems from Conviction. Gone is the black and white invisibility shit, and now there's a light on Sam's back that will show you when you're in the dark and will make you harder to spot. I like the verbiage, they literally say harder to spot, while in Conviction it said you're invisible to your enemies. I love this game already. The light on the back thing I think comes from Double Agent's version 1. I saw it in a video that I'll link in the description. The buttons make a ton more sense now. I didn't talk about Conviction's buttons at the time because I wanted to get past that game as fast as I could. But the controls were all types of f***ed up. Crouch was on the left bumper, now it's on the left stick. Aiming down the sights was clicking in the right stick, which is okay, but it's much better now on the left trigger. The thing that messed me up the most was taking cover was on the left trigger. Now it's on B, thank God. The gunplay feels much better for stealth. They really cleaned up the precise aiming. They also now allow you to do non-lethal takedowns. Wow, it's fucking wild that this was removed. It still blows my mind. Sam can pick up bodies again, and he can throw them like a sack of potatoes. Along with the return to good guy Sam's playstyle, the game takes into account of all the ways that you can play. Ghost being the one that we're talking about, sneaking around, knocking fools out, and not killing anyone. Assault, which is the total opposite. Loud, front door, blow fools away type tactics. And then there's Panther, which is a medium of both, being sneaky peeky and still murdering everyone. At the end of a mission, they'll give you a breakdown of each playstyle and award you accordingly. You get cash, which you can use to buy gear for Sam. I was not the biggest fan of this, but I didn't really mind it. You can buy sneaky pants, pillow shoes, night vision gunners, and other stuff like that. Speaking of which, the night vision is back, and the sound effect is here too. It's built off Conviction, so nowhere gets extremely dark, but the night vision helps fill out the shadows and gives you a more balanced view of the surroundings. Michael Ironside's Sam gave some levity to the missions. The comedy is back, but other characters carry that side of things.
He doesn't leave loose ends.
Yikes. Shitty week. Am I right? This guy. Ugh. What?
Who the fuck is this guy?
Honestly, there's plenty more to talk about, but I gotta say I'm happy with the way that this game turned out. It found a solid medium between the roots of the franchise and a more attractive mainstream appeal of an action game. I do wish that the sound meter would return, but that's besides the point. Should you play Blacklist? Well, it's the perfect game. If you hit your head under the desk...
Setup almost complete, Charlie.
Yeah, hang on. Ow! Ow!
Take a nap. Oh, You too. If you can't carry someone through a doorway, and if you want to shit in the alleyway.
Bathroom, you got one?
In the alley.
I'm gonna say the cliche thing. Blacklist is the game that Conviction should have been. It's a solid attempt at making a more accessible stealth game. Before you go, please give the video a like and subscribe too. This took tons of work. It's literally 6 videos in one, so it took me 6 times as long. The Splinter Cell games are fantastic, and the series as a whole is incredible. My ranking would be Chaos Theory, Double Agent, Splinter Cell 1, Pandora Tomorrow squeaks it out over Blacklist, and Conviction is last. I like to do more What's Up series videos, even if they do take up more time. Tackling 6 games was probably a bit too much for my first attempt, but if you have any ideas, leave them in the comments. I've been rambling, so I'll see you all in the next one. Stay safe.